Is Shalene Wright again. I attempted to do the stream not too long ago, but it disconnected, so I'm starting over. So here's my intro again. My name is Shalene Wright. I am an illustrator, and today I am doing another episode in our series of creating a children's book portfolio. So I am starting with this book cover that I am working on called Loveless Layla. I created it myself. This is not a real book, and it's more so just an imaginary thought that I had. And I said, wouldn't it be a great idea to include this in my portfolio? Why would this be a good portfolio piece for me? It's a good portfolio piece because I want to do more book covers, so it's important to include that in your portfolio. Always remember that the pieces you put in your portfolio are a representation of the work that you actually want to get hired to do. So if you want to do more book covers and you want to work on books that are geared towards older audiences, you make sure that you put that inside of your portfolio. So here we have Loveless Layla. I started working on this draft this morning, so it's more so a sketch that I'm going to be playing around with, but I'm really excited to do it because when I sit down and I look at this, it actually makes me excited. I feel happy, and I'm curious to know more about the story. This is a very simple book cover where I just have a text overlay here, the font, the writing at the bottom that lists my author name, and the sketch in the background. This is not a definitive finalized form, so today I'm just going to be going over the sketch of what this temporary or just a simple book cover would look like. So because I see myself wanting to illustrate more children's books, this is an important factor to include inside of my portfolio. So I'm going to keep going and start drawing. So I will not be able to do a full-length stream that is 1 hour and a half long as I usually do. This is going to be a much more brief stream. So I'll try to be as to the point and quick as possible. The objective for me today during the stream is simply to keep sketching and play around with the ideas and see what happens. So I chose the font that was a bit more of a brush script that felt a bit more handwritten, and I wanted to convey this light, loose feeling. I'm going to play around with Layla's expressions here, but I also have an alternate version of what I think I'd like to see for this book cover. So here we are with another version. It's so rough, and I know you guys probably can't see it very well, but I feel as though once I start fleshing it out for you guys to see, it'll make a lot more sense. So let's keep going and see what happens. So it's also important and really helpful to use Pinterest, Google, and any other resources that would help you build your imagination. I've always been one for loving to see more detail in the character because the character is always the thing that pulls me in. So right now I'm just pulling up any references that would inspire me on a separate screen. And because I am recording straight from my phone, this live stream is coming straight from my cell phone and not being streamed through my computer. I'm quite limited in my ability to move and do a lot of things because I want to make sure the audio is right. So just give me one moment as I pull things together, and maybe even you can consider what are some important details that you would want to have inside of your book covers to include inside of your portfolio. So it actually just looks a bit off, so I'm just gonna adjust the camera a slight bit if I can. I think this is better, so I'm gonna stick with that. And hopefully you guys can follow along. If you have any suggestions for the stream itself, please go ahead and let me know so I can make it a lot more easy for you to follow along with this process. So I am drawing on my Wacom tablet today on my standing desk. So if you are also an artist, I highly suggest you try to find ways to make your workspace more ergonomic, because after many years I realize I'm having a real pain in my upper back due to this years I spent using my regular desk and not having ergonomic chair. So if you're interested in knowing more about how to make your space more ergonomic, definitely check out the link below inside the description box. I'm going to be listing some of the things that I use to keep my workspace more ergonomic. So why don't we begin? So this is the second one. I'm going to finish the first one, the first cover that I was working on, and see where that goes. I know some of you mentioned that you're really interested to see how this turns out, like how the revamp process turns out. And honestly, I'm really interested too, because I'm doing it live for one, and each week you guys are really going to see what I've put together. There's going to be small gaps in terms of what I'm going to, like what I'm going to finish before I present it to you guys and what I'm going to actually do live. But you will see the thought process behind everything, and I'll have the platform here to share why I made the decisions that I did. And maybe if I'm able to, I'll be able to pull in some other references or get some critiques from people and share what my critiques were of my pieces, because it's always important to have a third party look over your work, especially someone who has experience in the field. So I'm just gonna continue. So when I actually designed or thought of Loveless Layla, I didn't want it to be like a sad story about how like she has no love and nobody loves her. I wanted to make it more about the experience she has in her mind, because in her life she's actually surrounded by a lot of love. So there's a narrative in her mind that tells her that she's without love and she's misplaced and she's forgotten and people don't really love her. But when each day and each moment she lives her life, it's that thought is constantly proven wrong. And I wanted to include like an earphone in her ear, but I don't know how to make it make sense visually, because it's a wireless earphone and I didn't want to add a wire, but I felt like adding the earphone would be a really nice piece or a nice effect to have, because to me the earphone kind of symbolizes like the constant noise in our head. And I know for some people it could actually be the calm or the peace, but for me I wanted it to symbolize that she's actually in her own world, and there is a noise that's going on in her head, but the sound that she's hearing currently is actually different. So she's actually reinforcing herself with positive reinforcement of the reality that she is loved and she is cherished. So as much as the title would be called Loveless Layla, it's more so a personal interpretation of how she hears the thoughts in her mind. And if I were to ever write this story, I would make sure to make this clear. But because this is simply a portfolio piece, this is just the idea behind it. And I just wanted to flesh things out a bit more. So I kind of imagined it like a side profile. Maybe I'll even bring the text down a bit more. I'm not sure. We'll see. Maybe I'll put it in here. I'll keep playing around with it and go forward with it. I kind of like where it's going. I like the feeling that it gives me, and it seems really pleasing to look at. I wanted Layla to feel like just a woman, but a very young woman who's kind of like not really a book nerd. And being a book nerd is not definitive of being unattractive. It's just like I want her to feel like she's studious and she's an observer and she has her own personal world and she's just in tuned. In tuned is definitely the word that I think I want to convey. And I want to create the scene where she's in the frame, but she's so big inside the frame that her head is going to be cut off in some places. She's close to the edge in some places as well. And in the background, I wanted to have a bit of a sea, so a sky around here, some really big poofy clouds, and maybe even some water, and go with that. Like that's my vision for what this was. So I'm really just playing with it, and I'm going to see what happens along the way. Unfortunately, I will not be able to be live very long to take the sketch very far, but I wanted to show you what I was doing so you have a really good sense of the thought process, and that, you know, children's books aren't just book covers, and children's books aren't simply just made out of nowhere. We really are sitting down and taking the time to think through every decision. And so this is that time for that. So if any of you have any questions, comments, or something you want to say, go ahead and let me know, and I'll be sure to get back to you in the chat box or as a reply after the stream has ended. So be sure to do that. I think I want to put her in like a turtleneck halter style top. I adore these kinds of shirts, so she's getting one. I feel like I chose the easy way out with this book cover because I could have done a lot smaller figures and really stretched it out and taken it further. But I actually enjoy what I'm looking at right now. Because this is what I enjoy, this is what I'm putting inside my portfolio. So don't make your life harder by putting things in your portfolio that you do not want to do. You might think that complexity is the most important thing to show and to demonstrate, but let your complexity and your attention to detail come through your skills and your application to your craft. Because if you know you don't like drawing like heavy scenery, if the minute you include that in your portfolio, you better believe that everybody's going to ask you to do that very thing you dislike. So I really want to add the fact that portraiture is something that is one of my strengths, and drawing portraits, drawing hair, and drawing women is honestly my thing. So I want to demonstrate that this is my skill set. And for the first piece that I'm working on, that's definitely what I'm doing right now. So start with the piece that actually gives you the most fun and pushes you to keep going. Definitely wanted the earphone in there. Her hair is actually too loose, so for my further, when I come back to coloring this, which you'll see probably in a week or two, then you'll see why I decided to do it this way. But sometimes if you draw it loose, you actually think you meant it loose when you come back to the sketch again. But I really want to remind myself that she has very tight textured hair. It's very kinky, very beautiful, and she loves it. Like, she is a very peaceful woman, and a lot is actually going for her, but because of the voices in her head and the self-talk that she has internalized from the experiences that she's had, she really doesn't see that she's loveless. So she's actually gone through experiences where she's rejected people, she's turned people away, and she's lost opportunities because she believes she's loveless. But it's all in her head, and this book is actually a journey to her realizing that it's not going to always, the sound in your head is not always going to have that narrative, and that her real world that she's experiencing is actually a life full of love and laughter and genuine human experiences and relationships that she just was afraid to acknowledge, because the minute she feels like she acknowledges that it's there, she feels like it's all going to vanish away. So this is Loveless Layla, the book I will probably never write, but here is the book cover for it. Thank you, Brown. Brown Outlier says, "This is so nice, love it." Thank you very much. So I'm actually going to play around with the sizing again, because I don't know if this is the best I can do. So I'm gonna see if I make her smaller, if that helps. I don't want it to be too confusing. Like, maybe it actually looks better if I don't cut off her hair and her head at the top, and I fully create it like this. And I have the clouds, like, you can't see it yet, but if you can imagine with me, there are clouds in the background. This is like water. I want it to be water. And there's like really big fluffy clouds in the background. Maybe those ones are too fluffy. So let's keep going with it and see. I don't know if it would be a sunset. Well, maybe a sunset. I have an affinity to drawing sunsets. Sunsets are my thing. But you know what? Being loveless in the evening feels like a closure. And because the book is about the reality that she is surrounded by all of this love, but she was just afraid to acknowledge it. I actually want it to be the morning because it's going to be the chapter of her life where a new beginning is accepted, where she's not alone and she's actually beginning to see the start of a new perspective on life. And that's so important. Like, these decisions that I'm making and I'm showing you, even when it comes on to children's books, this is the process you really want to have, because sometimes you do have to explain where your thoughts come from. And when you're brought with a transcript that is telling you the narrative of the story, and you get a brief that says, hey, I want you to do a book cover with a girl. She's sitting in a tree and she's looking far off into the distance. This is the summer where she just lost her pet dog, and it's really traumatic for her, but she remembers another event that allows her to find closure inside of the grief. So inside of getting a brief like that, you have to sometimes make the note personal, or really take on what would this character do, how would they feel, and really interpret the times of day and allow the elements that you are including into the art pieces to make sense. Like, even if I chose to do the evening, for me, it would be a clash. So it has to make sense to me sometimes in order for it to make sense as a whole, because the cohesion at times needs to be across the board. So because in my head, a morning is like a new beginning, it's a brand new day, that would make sense. And even if I'm asked by an art director, like, hey, can we make this change? No problem. Then I can explain, this was my intentions behind it. I thought it was a cool addition, or it'd be relevant or meaningful to the story. So sometimes it's good to have explanations for the decisions that you make, because it'll help other people understand what your thought process is. So don't feel like you have to be a yes person all the time, because you do have thoughts, you have opinions, and they matter. So let's go with that. I think what I'm going to do is maybe do some draft line art, maybe. You guys know I love my line art. So I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a new folder, turn down the sketch a bit. And actually, because I wanted to flesh out the other book cover, why don't I start over here? So I have this on the side showing that this is the old one, but let's create the next one. So if you're liking this stream so far, I would really appreciate it if you give me a like, because if you like this video, it'll help push it to people who are very interested in learning more about children's books, book covers, and the art of illustration and being an illustrator. I am an illustrator full-time, and I really want to help creatives in the space become more empowered to see themselves doing this too. So if you're enjoying this content, I'd love to receive a like so I can push this to the right people and help more people on YouTube. So my vision for this was actually to have Loveless Layla here. She has her shoulders up in a shrug and to her side, and she's kind of wearing like a smirk. And it's kind of like, I'm not really listening to you. kind of vibe. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna play around and see what happens. But that's how I wanted it to feel. Because she's so convinced that her life is just terrible. So she really wants to, like, she really is convinced that it's bad. And it kind of goes into the idea of pessimism and being a pessimist. And sometimes it's rooted in the fear of loss. And so if you don't acknowledge the joy that's in your life, you feel like you're actually protecting it. So when loss does come, you feel like you didn't really lose anything because you were already prepared. So Layla isn't really afraid of feeling that way inside, even though on the outside she presents a little differently. But this is her story and how she actually sees the world. So I actually want her shoulders to be a bit higher. You know, doing illustration full time is such a privilege and it's an honor because I never seen myself as an artist until well into my early 20s. It took literally sacrificing my life for art school and dropping out of art school to really accept that, wow, I can do this even if I don't complete school. I'm an artist even if I I don't get the grades that I was looking for. I'm an artist even if my professors feel like my work isn't really strong. And so the beautiful thing about social media is that it has really allowed me to hear from people who like my work and who interact with my work the importance and the importance of my work in their lives. Like, my work has a place in this world, even if it's for one person and even if it's just for me. So coming to that realization and accepting that has been such a powerful journey, because being an illustrator and getting up every day and doing this for my job, like serving you guys, I could be doing something else right now. Like, I would rather be here serving you, and this is what I do, means so much to me because I never believed that this was possible. First of all, I didn't even know being an illustrator was possible. I didn't believe that was a real career path. I was not pushed in this direction, and I was not taught about the vastness of what an art career could look like. And so I feel like every day I do this as a testament to the reality that I'm forging this path because it wasn't forged for me. Like, literally, there wasn't a person in my life that said, hey, do this, do this, do this. I feel like every day I'm telling my old self, like, hey, this is real. I'm real, and we're doing it. It gets hard sometimes because being an illustrator and doing freelance work that I do and being self-employed, you actually have to define what your career looks like, and no one really gets to tell you that. Like, I don't have a career description because every job is a little different, and I'm not employed at a company where I have a job and all of that. I take contracts that maybe last 6 to 7 months, maybe a year, and then I move on to the next one. So it kind of feels like you're being a grifter. So I, as a entrepreneur, as a small business owner, really see that it's important that I define who I am because no one else is going to do it. And any other interpretations that other people might have of my career, if I let that control me, I might lose my job because I'll start steering in the wrong direction. So it's really important for me to remember where I started and that I'm not there anymore. And each and every day is a brand new day, and owning it. Like, I'm allowed to define what my day looks like and my future looks like and not feel bad for it. Like, even if someone thinks I'm wasting my time, I could do better things. I decided that this was meaningful to me, and so I'm gonna continue doing what I love. And even if it's not children's books in the next year or 2 years, I'm making that choice. So it feels nice to own it, to be honest. And that's a side of me that I never thought I'd really be able to have ever. So every day feels like a testament to myself that, Shalene, it's possible, and you don't really know everything, but you'll figure it out along the way, and that's okay. So she want to push the eyebrows a bit more. She probably looks really childish to you. She does to me. And this is definitely the draft. So next week, I'll come back with a sharper draft of both of the sketches that I'm working on. And then I'm going to pause. So I actually have to go in about 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm going to see how much of this I can complete. So if it's on this side, okay. So let's do that. Usually this should be like a thumbnail, but I already did the thumbnail, so I was supposed to make it a bit more detailed. Alrighty, let's see. Let's keep going with this. The expression is not right. I actually need to change the eye shape so that she comes off more annoyed. No, that's not right. I definitely need to pull up a reference to remember what that even looks like. So do not feel like it's a bad thing to pull up a reference. Always, always pull up a reference when you're lost, especially when you're doing client work. The text here can be moved anywhere, and the hard thing about it is I know I want to draw her like still in the middle, and maybe I'll have like flowers coming out the side of her to kind of like pull the focus, like she's in a flower bed. But the text has already been decided, so it's actually pretty fixed. So wherever I do decide to put it, it's probably going to be at the bottom. There's nowhere else for it really to go. So it's always good to remember, though, when you are doing book covers, to think about the text and where that's going. A lot of the times when you're working on book covers, it's good to note that usually, unless they're asking you to hand letter it on your own, you are not actually doing that. They hire a designer, somebody who works with fonts and is really, really good at it, to do it. And so to me, that's a huge relief, because I am not a font person. I don't do fonts. I'm not the greatest at layouts and stuff like that, but I'm working on it, and that's why I'm here today working with you guys. So I much prefer this, but it's because I like doing stuff like that. And this is something I'm familiar with too. It's just the way I'm fleshing it out right now doesn't look as appealing. So like for a sketch, it's definitely, let's make her arms crossed to show that she's a bit defensive. Maybe I'll put the weight on one side of her body. Let's bring her shoulders up so much more. So as I draw, you can really see the evolution of where it's going all together. Like, I want her to be annoyed, but I don't want her to seem like she's unattractive, because it's not that. And it's not about attractiveness at all. It's more so her mind. So I know I have the expression wrong, and for now that's okay until I figure it out. I know next week when you guys see me again, I'll probably have worked on it so much more. And so you'll have a better reference for knowing what I meant in terms of the expression, for what I'm seeing in my mind. And so because I don't want her to be like put off. I just want her to be annoyed. Let me actually make her look at us and see how that goes. Actually, I kind of see her with her arms like open. You know, like when you're laying in the grass. That's actually what I see. So don't mind the eyes. I'm figuring that out. But I actually see something different now. Maybe I like even more. So let's go with that, with her arms in the grass. And so yeah, let's do it something like this. It's so rough. It's so anatomically messed up. But I do feel like this will read more as exhaustion. And I think exhaustion is closer to annoyed than what I want to convey about this story. So if you are watching the stream on the replay, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment so that I can get back to you and serve you better, because I want to know how I can help. I'm going to be signing out really soon after I finish just a rough of this sketch. So let me know what you think, where you're at, if you're working on your portfolio, what you do, because I'm really interested to see you guys and know what you're doing, because I'm working on my portfolio. But if there's something I can do to help you guys, or if me doing this helps you, just let me know so I don't cut this short, or I don't cut this series short. So these two pieces that I've been working on today, this cover and this cover, are two of, well, I'm gonna have to choose after I finish everything off which one I like more. And so she's gonna be in like grass here. Actually, her head is kind of crooked, which is fine. It doesn't have to be the straightest head, but so once I get her face on, I'm going to sign out. So this face is so not right, but we're just gonna have to work with it for now. Leave it alone, Shalene. So let me zoom in a bit more. Maybe I'll close her eyes. Gonna close her eyes here. If you're finding the stream in any way helpful at all, go ahead and leave me a like so I can reach more people who are interested in learning more about book covers, children's books, and artwork and the lifestyle of an illustrator, or just the work-life balance, because this stream is all about recreating my portfolio. So as you approach yours, it's a lot more lighthearted, and you realize that we're all just figuring it out and finding ways to best represent ourselves and the work we want to do with our art. So yeah, I feel like this book cover actually is much softer than the first one, and it's definitely a vulnerable moment that Layla would be having. Maybe, oh my gosh, she's gonna get her earphone again. So there's space for the earphone. Let's do it on both sides. Okay, so here's the earphone on both sides. We did it. And it might look wonky in the left ear, but that's okay. We strive for progress, not perfection. And so let me just draw her lips. And I think that is it for now. I think that wraps up our stream. That ends it. So as rough as this is, and as much as I want to perfect it even more, this is gonna do for now. So this is Loveless Layla, a confused, kind, maybe self-destructive, but earnestly trying to figure herself out young woman who is actually surrounded by a life of love, but because of the way she interprets things, she is convinced that her life is loveless. So this is book cover number 2, the rough sketch, and this is book cover number 1, the rough sketch. So if you like these or you have any other ideas, let me know in the comments. But until next week, where we are going to take it a step further and possibly do the coloring for this, or maybe I'll leave it alone and do all my drafts of all the stuff I want to do, then move into sketches. We don't know yet. I'll drop a message in the community tab and get your feedback, because I don't want to overthink this. So whichever is actually best to take this project, I will do that for next week, and I will see you at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next week, Friday. And so I hope you guys have a wonderful week. This is Shalene Wright signing out. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can go ahead and leave me a message down below, or you can send me an email on my website at shalenewright.com. Oh, Malaverse, you came late. Where were you? So you're going to have to catch the replay. I'm ending my stream a bit sooner today. So I did 2 book covers. This is the first one called Loveless Layla, and the second one that I'm working on next week, I'm going to be taking it to color, or maybe rough colors. So I hope you had a really good time at work, Malaverse. So for now, I hope the replay is worthwhile. But I'm going to sign out. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later. See you next Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is the Children's Book Portfolio series. Bye.